From the OUTV Broadcast Center in Los Angeles, California, this is Brief News Brief, a brief look at today's trending news topics. Proudly combating the thought police since 2016, here's your host, James Heaney.
I'm James Heaney, and this is your Brief News Briefing. Today, Donald Trump fired the chairman of the federal panel that Congress created to oversee his administration's management of the $2 trillion stimulus package. Whoa, wait a second. I don't even remember him hiring somebody. Well, late last month, a number of inspector generals selected Glenn Fine to serve as panel chairman. He's a career official who had served as acting Pentagon inspector general for 4 years and 3 months. But before that, he was actually the inspector general of the Justice Department, but only for 11 years. The $2 trillion coronavirus emergency spending law, known as the CARES Act, created several layers of oversight, including a Pandemic Response Accountability Committee, which is supposed to be overseen by the Council of Inspector Generals on Integrity and Efficiency. Sean W. O'Donnell, currently the Inspector General at the Environmental Protection Agency, is expected to take his place. But if your head is spinning because so many people are being replaced and fired in the Trump administration, well, then you'd be forgiven for that. Late on Friday, Trump fired Michael Atkinson, the Inspector General of the intelligence community. Trump acknowledged that this was in response to Atkinson having alerted lawmakers to the existence of a whistleblower complaint about the president's dealings with Ukraine. So you could imagine how that would kind of piss him off. That was the matter that ultimately led to Trump's impeachment. So Trump has also fired his chief of staff and got a new one. Well, I don't know if he considered fired. He got a new chief of staff. There's a noob in there. He fired his communications director. He fired a naval captain. And the acting Navy secretary who had to fire him, well, he resigned. Things be crazy in this crisis. But is Trump engaged in an assault against the independent inspector generals? He certainly is no fan of oversight. He certainly has a multi-billion-dollar hotel and leisure club industry that's seeking a bailout, which was a sticking point in the negotiations of the passage of the CARE Act through Congress. Will American tax dollars be squandered on wasteful boondoggles and incompetence for political favors? Is that the American way? Or are we better than that? Do we want a government money to bail out the richest of the rich so that they can stay in their 1% bubble? Or will the money go to the people and the businesses that need it most? Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, was hospitalized over the weekend for accelerating symptoms of the coronavirus. He's now reported to be receiving oxygen and in the ICU. Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab is carrying out the Prime Minister's duties in his absence. Johnson is 55 years old and has no known underlying health conditions. The Foreign Secretary said that there was total unity and total resolve amongst the cabinet members, who had been given very clear instructions by the Prime Minister to continue with their plan to fight the pandemic. Britain has confirmed 55,242 coronavirus cases and reported 6,159 deaths as of this recording. The country, like the United States, expects those numbers to continue to surge for days and maybe weeks. When the pandemic began to spread widely in Europe, Boris Johnson was of the mindset to let things just spread. Just let the virus move freely around the UK and let people get sick until they develop some kind of herd immunity. Let it run its course. Well, it ran its course, and the course's finish line ends up being at your door, Prime Minister Johnson. Johnson's one of Europe's most polarizing figures. He's sort of the mini-Trump of England. Johnson helped lead Britain out of European Union while upending the nation's politics with his brand of unapologetic populism. Queen Elizabeth, in a rare public statement, urged Britons to show solidarity and resolve. She told her compatriots, "I hope in the years to come everyone will be able to take pride in how they responded to this challenge." That's a pretty good Queen impression, isn't it? Believe it or not, today in Wisconsin, there's a vote. Yeah, an in-person election vote going on in Wisconsin in the middle of a pandemic. Hundreds of voters are standing in lines that stretch for blocks in several cities in Wisconsin. The election was almost canceled. It would have been canceled if it wasn't for a last-minute legal battle that ended up giving it a green light. Democratic Governor Tony Evers suspended in-person voting, only to be quickly reversed by the Wisconsin Supreme Court. The GOP-controlled legislature refused widespread calls to postpone the election and argued that in an emergency court filing that the governor's order exceeded his authority. Democrats accused them of trying to suppress voter turnout to help a conservative candidate for the Supreme Court seat. Poll closures and worker shortages are hitting the hardest in Milwaukee. They opened only 5 polling locations instead of their typical 180. That's a crazy number. So I'm imagining that if they're expecting everybody to come out and vote, so if they weren't trying to suppress and they expected everybody to come out, then they'd want all of the people that would typically spread out in 180 locations to cram together in these 5s. Way to go. Thousands of poll workers around the state refused to work, saying they were being asked to risk their health, which they were. Wisconsin is the only state to proceed with a presidential primary this month. Is this a preview of what could come in the next primaries, as well as what could happen in the November vote? The results of today's election will not be released until Monday, according to the State Election Commission. President Trump went so far as to urge people to get out and vote. Wisconsin, get out and vote now for Justice Daniel Kelly. Protect your Second Amendment right. Wow. So if you don't vote in this pandemic, then they're coming for your guns. They're coming for your guns! Right. The stakes are high, I guess. According to a tally compiled by the State Election Commission, more than 9,000 requested absentee ballots hadn't been sent to voters as of Tuesday. Will this be considered a legitimate election? So many citizens are experiencing disenfranchisement. Does every vote not count in Wisconsin? Not today. Not today.